This is Your Other Brothers Podcast.
Fear, you're not my lover, you're not my friend, you're not my brother. Oh, and no, there's no room here. There's a vacancy in my heart, but it ain't for fear.
Welcome, friends, to Your Other Brothers Podcast, navigating faith, homosexuality, and masculinity together. I'm your host, Tom, from the Jewel of the Blue Ridge, and I'm so glad you're here. And this is an exciting episode because we are bringing back the OG squad, Team OG, from, what do I call these locations? I'm trying to remember. The land of the Midwest. Do we have a better name for this geographic location that you're from, Dean? It's Dean. What's up, Dean?
Hey, guys. And I'm from the Mid-Best.
Oh, yeah, the Mid-Best. Gosh, you can tell that we had a hiatus, right? Because I've forgotten everything. How does this show work? Who am I? What I haven't forgotten, though, is from the land of enchantment, from far yonder out west. It's our dear brother, Matt. What's up, Matt?
What up? And I think it should be more like a land of entrapment, because once you live here, you can't leave. And whenever
entrapment,
yeah, and
land
whenever
land of enchantment, I like it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if you try to leave, you always come back. So that's always the case. That's why we call it land of entrapment. So you never
Very
leave.
Nice.
Is that because
I've never heard this before?
Is that because legally you can't leave?
Legally,
you're just so enchanted by the beauty of it all, aren't you?
That's debatable. So
that's what I was wondering. I feel like maybe it's called entrapment because there's a legal reason you can't actually leave, not because it's so beautiful. That's what they try to pass off. That's what they have out. That's what the hot air balloon's really about. People are still trying to get out of there, and they keep landing back in the land of entrapment.
Exactly. I mean, I think you kind of got what's going on here, like deep state type of thing. So be quiet with that. I can't leave, and this is a sign for help. I'm just kidding. No.
Well, Matt, whether you're entrapped or enchanted or both, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad both of you guys are here. I said it at the top. Y'all are Team
I'm
OG.
glad I'm here. Do you know why?
Matt, I know, because you always want to be on the podcast. It's like
exactly. Yes.
And you want to be on more. I know, I get it. But this is what I want to say, because you're cutting me off. I'm trying to prop you up. Team OG, Dean and Matt, you guys have been with me from the beginning of this whole endeavor. You're the brothers. And so moving forward, it's my hope that we get to incorporate y'all more often as well as we do this podcast. And so for all of our listeners, we have, Jacob and Ryan, and we love them too, but they're Team New School. They're kind of the new kids on the block, and I do episodes with them. But then we have Matt and Dean, and they're like we go back to kindergarten. It's like the metaphor that we've been friends our whole lives. And we're doing these episodes now. And every once in a while, you might see a crossover of old school, new school. But I'm really excited for just like these, the bouncing back and forth, old school, new school. And maybe we mix up some of the cast here and there. But I'm excited. And we'll, of course, have other voices from our community as well popping in from time to time. But I'm excited to have you guys back after the hiatus, because this is my first time talking to you on the podcast in many, many months. And so first thing I wanted to put out there is just get a little quick catch up. What have y'all been up to? I talked to you guys individually on the Corona Convo cast. We did several episodes one-on-one. Some of my favorite episodes, honestly, were with you guys. They were really great. Dean and I did a whole episode on Parks and Recreation. Like, what in the world? We just did, because why not? It was the coronavirus, and we were losing our minds and trapped. And what were we going to do? And then Matt, I had some great conversations too about faith, about the virus, about how it's affecting all of our lives. So what's the quick update? Let's go around the horn. Let's go. I don't know. Whoever wants to go first. Like, what have you guys been up to in the last couple months?
Age before beauty, Matt.
Okay. So since I'm the pretty one here, let me see. Oh, okay. So one thing that you forgot to mention besides our Corona Convo cast is that you forgot to mention Native American stuff. I talked about that. That was the last conversation that you had with me. Come on, Tom.
No, that was good.
Come on.
And yeah, that was good. And we talked about some Native American words, didn't we?
Yes. No. I mentioned a few words. Well, okay. So if you guys haven't listened to it,
Clan.
Yeah, part of it, yes.
Yes,
Coyote
Salt
Pass,
Clan.
yeah, Coyote Pass and Salt Clan, and then there's 2 other ones. So if you guys want to listen to that, go back to the Corona Cast, and it's talking about the Navajo Nation and reservations. So it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's not the Corona Cast; it's the Corona Convo
Oh my gosh!
Cast, henceforth known as the Your Other Brothers Convo Cast.
Okay, so
let's get that. Let's get our branding straight. Thank you.
We will link to the below.
Yes,
We'll have a
yes, we
link.
will. Okay, so here's an update on me. Besides me wanting to strangle Tom right now, is that
Matt, I have an autoimmune disease. You have to be nice to me.
I really don't need to. I could basically kill you and you could go to heaven right now. So, yeah.
Oh, please, Lord. Please, Lord. Yes. No, continue. What were you going to say? Why do you want to strangle me now?
Because you're just being annoying right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can tell you why. So when I first signed on with Dean, real quick, and I'll let you continue talking. When I first signed on with Dean, he was like, wow, you're really hyper. You're really energetic. What's wrong? And I was just like, I'm just getting in the zone. I had a lot of coffee today and I knew I was recording today. But then I thought about it because I went to treatment yesterday. I had my first treatment, which I'll thoroughly discuss in a moment. But I literally have drugs in my body I've never had before. So maybe this is the new me. Maybe I am just annoying now. High energy, Tom.
Yeah. Okay. But we want you to shut up because we're talking about me. Okay.
Go back. Talk about yourself.
Okay. So since the last time we talked, an update was, unfortunately, we had another death in the family, and it was due to COVID-19. And so that was a bit hard as well. Family took it pretty hard. Cousin of mine passed away 3 weeks ago. We had the funeral like a few days after. We had to do it quick, and then after that we had to disperse. But there's that. Let me see. Another update is that
real quick, Matt. I want to jump in on that because I don't want to gloss over that. Like as of this recording, I hate having to repeat myself because I have to remind myself this episode could be listened to 5 years from now, 10 years from now. People are like, wait, passed away from what? And as we're recording this, we're still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic here in America. Seems like it's getting worse and worse. We keep thinking it's almost over. We're going on the downhill now, but we're still struggling. There's a lot of people dying and affected by this as we're doing this. And it hits super close to home with someone in your own family. And I'm starting to know people now, or friends of friends at least, who have been affected by the virus. And just condolences go out, Matt, to your family and this whole situation, because it's just crazy that it just keeps escalating and keeps going, and we keep waiting for the other side, whatever the other side even looks like. So, but anyway, what else is up with you?
As of right now, I'm actually missing church. So every Wednesday night I go to a church and we're going through the whole Bible. And I'm missing that, but it's only because I care for you guys. I love you guys. And I actually I kind of want to strangle Tom right now. So, yeah.
I feel the love. I'm so glad, Matt, that you sacrificed your time in the group tonight. Hopefully you're just missing something from First Chronicles or something that doesn't.
We're actually in 2nd and 3rd John and going to be in the book of Jude. Yeah.
Oh, dang. That's some good stuff. Well,
yep. And I'm missing that because of you.
No, I'm honored that you would take the time to talk about. I didn't even say what we're talking about today. My goodness. In the intro, I always say this is what we're talking about. Guys, by the way, today we are talking about side A friendships, ? And we're going to talk about what that even means. If you don't know what side A is, I guess you just got to stick around and listen as we talk about it. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But first, before we do, we need to go to Dean and hear any updates on your end, Dean. What have you been up to since Parks and Rec came back into our lives? I think that's the last time we recorded with you.
That was the last time. I first want to say that I don't appreciate your knock against First Chronicles. The post-exilic record of the history of the kings of Judah is very important to understanding literature in the Old Testament.
I'm sure it is.
It's very critical. And
it is.
And the first
I have to agree.
Yeah, the first 10 chapters that recount the genealogy are critical to understanding where the people of Judah were coming out of the Babylonian exile into Jerusalem to rebuild it. And that sets up a lot for the post-exilic prophets and prepares us for the historical path to understanding the Gospels. So just saying...
No, I apologize to our First Chronicles lovers out there.
Facts right there.
But to my own credit, I'm going to give myself credit. If you were to think of a book of the Bible that doesn't matter on the spot, what would you come up with? Not to say that there isn't a book of the Bible that doesn't matter, but in a jokey way, what would you say? And thing that came to my mind was First Chronicles, and that is clearly the correct answer.
No, the correct answer
we're
would
just
be,
going to move on.
the correct answer would be Ecclesiastes, because it literally, the theme is vanity of vanities, all is vanity.
No.
So if you're going to say doesn't matter, choose the book that says nothing matters.
Easily a top 5
It's
book.
a great, ironic choice. I love Ecclesiastes.
We're gonna agree to disagree on that one, but no, Dean, for realsies though, what have you been up to? What's going on in your world in the Midwest?
In the Midwest, in the midst of all the pandemic and everything, I actually started a new job. I lost my jobs because of the pandemic and was without work for a while. But the church I've been a part of for the past almost year now brought me on as the discipleship pastor. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been that's been fantastic. It's been interesting coming on board a church in the middle of a pandemic, because there is no ministry as usual, because there's nothing as usual. So that's been fun, fun to work out. Otherwise, life is just, I mean, in the Midwest, my state is has been one of the strictest states in the nation in regards to shutdowns and everything like that. So we had a lot of early shutdowns, and they've gone on for a long time. So we're a little more open than some states right now, but we're even starting to get to a point where we're seeing some small spikes. So we've had to adjust some things this week in my specific area of the state. One of my brothers came down with COVID. He was exposed to it, and it ended up exposing my parents. So we were worried that my parents, being in the high risk category, what would happen to them. They did not contract it. My brother was in the hospital for a few days. Fortunately, he did get better and was able to go back home. But that was, you talk about people being affected by it. That was a lot to hear that and know how much it could affect the rest of my family. And that's why when Matt had mentioned, Matt and I've been talking, my heart goes out to Matt, and I've been praying for his family during this time dealing with that loss. And so, I don't know of many people that aren't being hit close to home in some way. And again, I was fortunate that my brother's health was such that he contracted COVID and then was able to recover. Not everyone is that fortunate. So otherwise, life continues with a wife and child, a child who is about as sarcastic as Matt is. So,
whoa, you got a little 8 on your hands, maybe?
I'm pretty sure I have an 8 on my hands. 7.
Whoa.
I'm thinking.
I hope so.
Oh,
this is like exciting news.
I think she's an 8-wing 7, because if you give her too many options, she freezes and she cannot handle more than 3 options for something, because then she can't make up her mind. She can barely handle 2 options for anything. So yeah, I'm pretty sure she's like an 8-wing 7 or a 7-wing 8.
Cool. I love typing toddlers. So I'm looking at my new, because I had a quick family update for me. I have a brand new niece in the world now. So I have 2 nieces now. And obviously it's hard to type a 3-week-old, but the 3-year-old, all of a sudden I'm starting to notice personality coming out, and I have theories. I'm not going to say them on the air, but I have theories of what she is or is turning into. And it's kind of interesting to know what I know about the Enneagram and think, okay, how can I be the best possible uncle I can be, knowing what she's motivated by, and just what makes her what makes her great. So I'm excited to implement that as of right now, the closest I can get to parenting, which is not at all parenting, but I'm excited to be a fun Uncle Tom. It's going to be so great. I'm glad Enneagram came back up, because I really love the triad that we form here, because we have a 2, a 4, and an 8 in the room, and we all kind of go to each other in a triangle. Like when I'm healthy, or when I'm unhealthy, rather, I take on Dean's more negative qualities. When Dean's unhealthy, he takes on a lot of Matt's unhealthy qualities. And when Matt's healthy, he takes on a lot of Dean's healthy qualities. And when Dean's unhealthy, he becomes a lot of my unhealthy. So when Dean's healthy, I'm sorry. If anyone's confused, I'm sorry. I had to bring this up, but needless to say, I love the vibe, y'all. I told you, we're the old school old school crew. We have this energy that just goes back.
We're basically the winning team, and the new people are the losing team. So
we are Destiny's Child, and the new people are Fifth Harmony.
Yes.
Jacob and Ryan, is that?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that. So
Or
sorry, not sorry.
Can we do One Direction?
No,
God,
sorry.
no.
We are We're Destiny's Child, okay? What is wrong with being Destiny's Child?
I don't know. I never got that.
Yeah, it shows.
This is how Matt and I bond. When I struggled to find like connection, I was like, "Oh, Matt, do you hear the new Hillsong United album?" And then we riff on that for like hours.
Yeah,
So
we do. If
I reach a crisis point in the conversation today, I will bring up Hillsong, and we'll be able to recover the conversation. That always works. Well, it's good to hear from you guys. So again, recapping, Dean, congrats on your job. That's incredible. During a time of financial insanity, a lot of job loss and craziness going on in the world right now. So that's really awesome that you have that security. And to be doing something you love and are passionate about is really awesome to hear. And again, another sobering, just like, man, sorry to hear about all the craziness that this virus is affecting you with. No doubt so many listening. I mean, I can't even imagine all of our listeners who all has been affected by this, whether they know somebody or tragically, if they've lost somebody, a loved one. Like, heart goes out to you. Prayers go with you guys listening. Continue to be safe, make good choices. This is like a crazy thing that we're all in together. And so hopefully we're going to get there sooner than later. But as it is, we're always glad. I'm glad this is our second episode back from our break, and excited to kind of just get back into this regular flow. And if nothing else, to give you guys an hour and a half of just a little bit of an escape, a little bit of a, maybe a stimulating conversation and something that you haven't thought about before, maybe things that you have. And hopefully here, at least in the intro part, a little chance to just kind of relax with us and enjoy. Pull up a chair, because you're always welcome here in the YOBcast. Before we get to the announcements, I did want to give a quick update on my disease, because that is a thing that I introduced in our last episode.
Being a 4 is not necessarily a disease.
Oh, you mean that's normal? I can be a normal human and also be an Enneagram 4. No, thank you for that. Autoimmune disease life, man, it's fun. It keeps going and going. Real quickly, because if you follow me on social media, I post fairly frequently about my updates there, so I don't need to go on it too long. But as this just happened yesterday, as I already referenced, I went to the hospital. I had my first treatment for immunosuppressants. I sat in a recliner chair. It was actually quite lovely. It was a great day. Sat in a recliner chair with a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Had this little IV tower attached to me, so I could drag it around, go for a walk around the building, go to the bathroom. So it was like not as crippling as I thought it'd be. I was expecting like hospital bed and straps and hospital gown, and just like all the dramatics of what my last experience in the hospital was. So this one was so freeing. I had my laptop. I was reading. A woman came. Get this, you guys. This was for free. A woman came and asked if she could give me some healing. She kind of was like one of those super spiritual types, like a Christian or something. No, I don't know. She gave me a list of things that she could do for me, like a shoulder massage, or this thing where you like touch, like briefly, like you touch your whole body for like energy or something. And then she also asked, and the other item on the list was a foot massage. And I'm not a big like massage person. I've had 1 or 2 massages in my life, and they never really did anything for me. But I did tell her that through this disease with my crippling joints and swelling and muscles, I was like, my feet have kind of hurt for a while. So I was completely open to a foot massage, and she gave me a free foot massage. She was wearing gloves, and she put like this lotion on them, and she was squeezing them and rubbing them. And it was, it was quite lovely. So I had this free foot massage in front of the Blue Ridge Mountains while IV dripped drugs into my system that will hopefully kill off these horrible white blood cells that are destroying my body. So I'm going to do that for the next 3 weeks. Every week for the next 3 weeks, go up there for a couple hours and just kick back, relax, have my feet rubbed, and it's going to be so fun. And again, I don't know if it's affecting me. I feel super bubbly today. I don't know why that is, other than the caffeine that I also consumed today, but I feel great. And thank you guys for praying, for reaching out. I got so many messages of support. It's been a blast to feel the love from literally all over the world. So continue to pray for me, pray for remission. That is the one word. If you're going to think of my name and pray for me, attach it to the word remission, that I reach that state sooner than later. And hopefully hopefully the rest of 2020, if not certainly going into 2021, is kind of a better, kind of get the gears going in a better way. So that's the quick update from my neck of the woods. This whole time that I told the story, Matt and Dean were on mute and making faces at each other. I think having some sort of like back and forth of innuendos about older woman rubbing my feet. I'm not sure what exactly
no comment.
Miming to each other.
I do kind of wish that part of the YOBlog could have been just a video of Matt and I going back and forth that entire time.
Yes.
Maybe one day you guys will have bonus video footage of our podcast, because it's honestly kind of tragic that for 60 plus episodes you haven't been able to see what we all see on a regular basis. It's quite something. It's quite a production, honestly, but we got to move on, y'all. We got to move on. We got to get to the announcements, and we got to get to our discussion on Side Eye Friends. Okay, so rolling into the announcements, I need to give a gigantic shout out. I mentioned on our last episode, our first episode back from the break, that we've had this phone number for a while, the Yob line, as I call it. And a few people have used it over the last, I don't know, year and a half, however long it's been in existence. But it hasn't been really super frequently utilized. We played a couple messages on YOBalogs that our Yobbers can listen to from Patreon. But I've during the break, I was like, I really would love to incorporate this Yob line and having the listeners be featured on the actual show, the YOBcast. If they have something good to say, like let's have them say it and let's put it on the show. And so I reintroduced. I mean, we've had the number again for the last year or so, and I said, hey, y'all, call, please. If you hear something in this episode that triggers a memory, a story, some questions, like I want to hear them. And if you don't mind putting your literal audible voice out there, I'd love to play it on the show. So not only did we get one, we got two people who did that. And I just want to play those messages now. Because again, first person, got to give a huge shout out to him, because I announced that if we get a call, they're going to win something. They're going to win surprise. They're going to win some sort of merch item from Your Other Brothers, which currently does not exist, but it will soon. So first let's listen to that message.
Thomas Mark Zuniga. I was going to email you, but I decided to leave a voicemail in hopes of winning some merch. LOL JK. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that I've been praying for you, my friend, and I was so glad to hear your health update on the podcast from last week. Your response to this new thorn, if you will, kind of made me think of 1 Peter 1, where Peter says that sometimes now we, if necessary, we are in various trials so that the proven character of your faith, more valuable than gold, which though perishable is refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Just like gold, when it's refined, passes through the fire, genuine faith survives the fires of life. And so just hearing your response to this, you're running to God rather than away from Him when faced with this, is such a confirmation that you're His child, right? It's beautiful. So beautiful. Praise God. Can I get a witness? Anyway, and you, Ryan and Jacob, knocked it out of the park with this podcast. It was super encouraging to me, especially the section on gratitude about your sexuality. You guys came back with a vengeance here. Jacob talking about how he's grateful for his sexuality is given this opportunity to grow, to develop, to learn in ways that he doesn't feel like he would otherwise. You brought up the community, brotherhood, and friendship that you found on this journey with your sexuality. And then Ryan taught me how I can worship God every time I see a beautiful man. What a gift. Grace and peace.
Man, that is awesome. Thank you so much for your call. And you will be getting the Yob merch item soon. So stay tuned for that. I will be in touch. This guy, he's a fairly regular attendee of our Zoom rooms that we have with our Yob community. So I'll be talking to you very soon. Thanks for calling in. And we also got this other message from Mike. He left a message of just great support. So let's take a listen to that.
Tom, this is Mike. I just love you. I am so grateful that you are back ministering to us. I'm very, very selfish. I've been praying for you. Just to hear you guys talking again tonight Jacob and Ryan and you. It just fits like an old shoe, a good old shoe though. I mean, I feel like I'm in the room with you. And you said, well, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder why people even listen. Are there people listening? And I can't believe people are listening. Absolutely. Because you've just torn down barriers in your heart and then, of course, on your lips. And you give us words of consolation constantly. So I love you guys. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, again, the emails, the comments, the phone calls now, the support's coming in. I'm super grateful for all of you guys for listening. Please, if you want to call, respond to anything that you hear in this episode, please do. 706-389-8009. Call 24/7 anytime. Leave a brief-ish message and you can introduce yourself or not. You can be anonymous or not. It's totally up to you. But yeah, huge shout out to those guys for calling. And we may have another call featured later in this episode. So stay tuned.
If you would like to call me directly, you may call 8675-309.
Thank you. Dean, that's so nice of you to have that much access.
And ask for Jenny.
Okay.
That's my street.
Yeah, y'all keep the Yob line handy in your phone. Save it in your contacts. Put it on speed dial if you still have that capability. That way you can call us anytime. You're ready at any moment to give us a call and to be featured on the show. How cool is that you can have 45 seconds of fame on a low to mid-rated podcast? Amazing, right?
I just had a major flashback to having speed dials, and now I'm kind of stuck in the year like 2000.
I know, speed dials. I'm thinking about top 8s from MySpace. I'm thinking all kinds of just like retro things that the kids don't know anymore. Gen Z, they're all on TikTok. They don't know anything.
I know.
They don't know what we went through. In addition to calling us, another amazing way, which so many of you have done to support us, is by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. So if you find Your Other Brothers podcast, if you have a few moments to take the time and rate and review us, it really does help us out in a huge way. And I wanted to give a quick update on our Patreon, because last episode I put out a goal for all of our listeners that if you enjoyed the Your Other Brothers Corona ConvoCast, soon to be the Your Other Brothers ConvoCast, we would love to bring it back. And we set a goal of 200 patrons. So when we hit 200 patrons, we will do the Your Other Brothers ConvoCast every other week. I've decided. I was a little unsure if I could do like every other week or once a month or whatever, but I really like the idea of bouncing back and forth, doing a Your Other Brothers podcast, doing a ConvoCast. So you have a short form and a long form every single week. Again, except for those pesky months that have 5 Fridays, which throws everything off. But for the most part, that's my goal, is to get a podcast in your ears every single week, whether it's 90 minutes or 20 minutes. And we just need some more patrons. That's all. So as of our previous recording, now this could change because the internet is fluid and people make decisions all the time. I don't know what's going to happen by the time this comes out, but as of our last episode, we had 185 patrons. As of this recording, we have 187. So we are creeping closer. We are 13 patrons away from this goal. So if you've never supported Yob, if you've heard about our Patreon, you've heard about the Yobbers group, you've heard about the Yobalog and Zoom rooms and all this lingo, if you're curious about learning anything about that, you can go to Your Other Brothers on Patreon, which is patreon.com/yourotherbros. And you could be one of the next 13 people to bring us over the top. And I would love to start doing ConvoCasts where maybe Dean and I will talk about Supernatural for a whole episode. Maybe I'll watch the premiere and we'll talk about it. Or Matt can teach me more Navajo words. Or we'll talk to some of our other Yob authors that we've gotten to talk to as I did those 20 plus episodes. So yeah, if you want to become a Yobber, now's never been a better time, because there is you have a clear impact on our legacy and our destiny. So take it upon yourself to contribute, and we would love to have you aboard. It's a fun, really swell community. I love our group. Don't you want more one-on-ones with Matt?
I know I do. Yeah, everybody does.
Everybody's. Or Matt, we could do a longboard episode where we both longboard the whole time for 20 minutes. How fun would that be? I'm freaking down for that. You would hear wheels on concrete the whole time, but it would add to the aesthetic. It would add to the aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did longboard during one of the ConvoCasts.
The last 10 seconds.
If you guys heard it. Yeah, and that was great. And if you guys want that to happen, it's going to happen anyways, whether you guys like it or not.
It's like it'll either happen 7 years from now or potentially next month if we hit the goal that soon. So it's up to you guys.
So 7 years from now will be Matt's next appearance on the podcast because that's how top schedule
Yes.
Like last time.
If we go according to history, yes, that's exactly right. But no, I hope Matt will be on sooner than that. And then Dean, for our next one-on-one podcast, we will do something that involves no exercise whatsoever.
I'm all for that. No exercise at all. Because as we're recording this, I am currently snuggled into my bed, ready to sleep.
You look quite cozy, quite comfy. I hope this conversation keeps you going that we're about to dive into, because it's a good one.
I hope so. But if you do start to hear me snore, I apologize. It's not because you're boring. It's because I'm tired.
You're tired. And I appreciate you for being here. I appreciate Matt for taking time away from his church. And I appreciate all of you guys for listening. Before we get to the episode, we need to thank our sponsor, because we're talking about sides today. We're talking about so many sides, you guys. A big shout out. And this sponsor really needs our help, you guys, because our sponsor today is Coins. And Coins needs our help because I don't know if you guys know this, but we have in America currently a coin shortage. For some reason, there's no coins. Where did all the coins go? We don't know. No one's spending them, or they're all in grandma's gigantic mason jars or something. We don't know. We don't know where the coins have gone, but you go everywhere, not everywhere, but a lot of places, you'll see signs where they're like, we need coins. Please give us your coins. Do you have coins? I was just at a store in the North recently, and they would give away free coffee and donuts if you could bring them coins. Like, what is this? What is this world that we're in? So big shout out to Coins for sponsoring this episode. If y'all have coins, go take them, go spend them, put them in circulation. Don't hoard them for yourself, because apparently our economy needs them, even though our economy's sinking quickly. Like, spend your coins. And thank you, Coins, for sponsoring our discussion today as we talk about the sides of our faith and sexuality and what all that means as far as our friendships go.
So, well, that wasn't disappointing at all. So thank you for reminding us about what we're going through right now. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Are you being sarcastic like Dean's daughter?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. See, the sponsors are usually terrible, and I hate them. And this one's even worse somehow.
What?
Like,
yeah,
this is worse somehow.
You see, the magic of editing, I will edit Dean's words to say that this week's sponsor is the best, because we can't diss our sponsor, because then why would they sponsor our show? It makes no sense.
I can very easily diss the sponsor. I will comment on the post in every arena and say the sponsor.
I'll set a code on our website that makes sure you don't say anything bad about our beloved sponsors, because we are so grateful to be covered in support.
With what?
We
don't have coins. If you're going to cover us in coins, no wonder there's a coin shortage. You know how many nickels it takes to cover this luscious body?
I literally have no idea.
We can find out if you'd
let's
like.
Continue.
If you would like to find out how many coins it takes to cover Dean's body, please support us on Patreon.
Or submit your estimate by calling us at 706-389-8009. Thank you. You guys, we're talking about side A friendships. Let's get into our main discussion here today. And this is an interesting one. It's kind of out of left field in a way, because I have a lot of topics that are more like closer to the front of my brain as I'm looking at, okay, what are some really important ones we haven't talked about yet? Or some of our classic episodes that we're going to be redoing soon. So this one wasn't one that I initially, as we were talking, the three of us, about a topic, wasn't one that was on my immediate radar. But as we started talking about it, as I started looking into it, I saw a lot of good content, at least from my perspective. I had some stories to share, and I trust, because you're on this episode, that you might have some perspectives to share as well. Otherwise I don't know why you signed up to this episode, but we're going to trust that. But yeah, we're talking about side A and side B, and particularly relationships that we as side B, quote unquote, folks of faith have with side A folks of faith. And I guess the very first thing we need to do is define what in the world we're talking about, because there was a time where all of us, we didn't hear those terms. We're like, wait, side A, what letter am I? And you had to like look it up. And I always forgot, am I A or B? Which side am I on? I have no idea what team I'm playing for. And I'd have to look it up and be like, oh yeah, that's that one. And that's that one. Dean, do you have a concise history? Because we talked about this. We actually did an episode. I forget who was on the episode. Forgive me. But it was episode 41. We did an episode called Why Side B, and why we walk this path that we walk with our faith and our sexuality. So we defined the terms and the labels there, but Dean, do you want to give a quick recap? Because I feel like you're pretty knowledgeable in this arena.
Sure. The best way I can describe it is side A would be an LGBTQ individual who believes that the Bible affirms same-sex sexual relationships. A side B individual in its most basic form and most general form would be an LGBTQ individual who believes that the Bible does not affirm or condone same-sex sexual relationships. Side B specific would say that any sort of relationship that is non-sexual between two people of the same sex is okay. Do not have sex. If you go deeper into the spectrum of non-affirming, if you include side Y and side X, there's varying degrees where side X says that even identifying as LGBTQ plus would be considered sinful. Side Y is in between. Side B has no issues with identifying as LGBTQ plus. Simply guard your actions against same-sex sexual relationships. So in general, that would be the two sides, side A and side B.
Beautiful. That was so. I was like, I could try this, but I've already been talking a lot, and I was like, you know what? I'm sure Dean has it. He's so good at this stuff. Like, I'm sure he has it all laid out. That was beautiful. And I say side B because I know there are a lot of people in our community and listening. We have a very diverse readership, listenership. So there might be folks in our community who don't identify as side B, and maybe they fit more into X or Y, or maybe they just don't like any of those labels, and they're just like, maybe they identify as LGBTQ, maybe they identify as SSA or same-sex attracted or whatever your label. We're not here to necessarily dive into labels and the theology of this, because that is its own long, wonderful conversation. What we're talking about explicitly, specifically today is friendships, relationships with those who are of the affirming persuasion and live out that belief. And so these aren't people, again, to be clear, we're not talking about LGBTQ people who don't have a Christian faith, who don't follow Jesus. These are people who follow Jesus. They say they follow Jesus. They go to church maybe, or whatever. But they just have this, big divergence, I guess, from where we're coming from with the choices we've made and the decisions we're making in our respective paths of following Jesus. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about side A and side B, or side A and everyone else who follows Jesus. I was really curious because I'm going to get y'all's perspective soon, but I put a poll out in our Yobbers group, and I wanted to know. I put on my investigator's hat, and I wanted to know from our Yobbers group, about 150 guys all over the world in our Yobbers group. And I put the poll out to them, and I put this question saying, how many friends, and I use the word friends specifically, not an acquaintance, not a person that you know or a person that you used to know, but how many friends do you have currently today who are side A? And my three choices were 0, 1 or 2, or 3+. So I wanted to see how connected to side A folks people in our group were. And I was actually really surprised that it was pretty much evenly split down the group. We actually had a tie between 0 side A friends and 1 or 2 side A friends, with 17 votes each, and then 15 votes for people who had three or more side A friends. So I was surprised by that, honestly. I was expecting a little bit more of a tilt. For some reason, I was thinking more of a tilt toward the 0. That was just my thought. But looks like, assuming everyone understood the question, that's the thing. I'm assuming everyone understood what side A and what it all was that I just laid out and what Dean just laid out. But according to that poll, it seems like it's pretty even across the board. People either have some or several even side A friends, or a couple, or 0. It's like pretty evenly split across our community, at least in our group anyway. So that's the scientific data. I don't know what the margin of error is on that as far as our entire listenership goes. But I wanted to poll the room now, the Zoom room that we're in. I want to hear from you guys. How many would you put into that category? Who would you call, how many would you call a friend? Not an acquaintance, not someone you hear from every once in a while, but like a friend. You have no problem using that word, calling them your friend. How many would you say, you guys?
I'm definitely 3+. I mean,
3+. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's well above 3 for me of side A friends for sure.
Okay. What about you, Matt?
As of right now, 5.
Ooh, you have a specific number. Very nice.
Yeah.
Over 3 as well. Yeah, and that's honestly the data follows with me too, because I would definitely be more in the 0, 1, 2 category. It kind of depends on what you call a friend. And again, I as a 4 have very high standards, I guess, as far as what is a friend. So maybe that's why I'm a little flexible with the 1 or 2, but it's not as many for me for sure, compared with you guys. And so I'm actually excited then for this conversation, because I feel like it gives us a lot of diversity in the room to talk about how we interact with these people. So for this conversation, as we're talking about side A friendships, when I was thinking about it, when I was scoping this episode out, I kind of saw two paths forming. And when we're talking about side A friends, there's two ways that we can acquire them. We either acquire them when they've always been side A. We met them, we knew them, maybe they had a boyfriend, or they were already dating, or already married, or already had kids with another man. And that's just how we met them and got to know them as a human, as a person, and ultimately as our friend. And then there's the other way that we meet side A friends, which is becoming an increasingly common story the older I get and the more I'm in this side B revoice type of world, is side B people who reach a point in their faith journey where they then switch their theology and switch the direction of their lives by adopting a side A theology and pursuing a same-sex relationship or sexual relationship with another man. And so that's kind of the way I see this conversation going, is maybe like, let's start out by talking about relationships of the former, and then we can talk about relationships of the latter, because I know I had some stories from the YOBers group, which we'll be sharing kind of in the back end of this conversation. But I wanted to start from the beginning. Like, I'll start with you guys. Do you have stories to share? Just friendships you've made. And obviously we're not here to like spell out someone else's life. So this isn't about them as it is about you and how you approached that person and how you became friends. Like, how did you learn to call this person friend? If any particular relationships jump out at you, but these are people who you met, and from the beginning, they are a Jesus follower, and they also have an affirming theology. So how did that relationship come about?
For me, I had several of the friends I have now who are side A, I got because in my work for my previous church and doing LGBTQ outreach and care, as that started to become more evident, I had several individuals reach out to me, and they wanted to clarify something. So they saw the language of LGBTQ outreach and care, and they reached out and they said, "Hey, we just want to check in. How do you define outreach and care? Like, what does that mean to you to say you want to do outreach and care for LGBT individuals?" And so I explained to them that, my concern or my focus in it was simply extending the love of Christ to any LGBTQ person, walking with them in their journey of life, and essentially being there to care for them when it seems like the church hasn't done that well for them. And so we would build this common ground of that. And they would ask, well, what are your beliefs? Or what are the beliefs of the organization you're with? And I would explain to them, say, we are non-affirming, so that our church would not condone or perform a same-sex marriage. I said, but that does not prevent us from walking or journeying with anyone in their faith, no matter their own beliefs. The primary goal is simply to be the hands and feet of Christ for individuals who've been marginalized or pushed away. As I said, at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell someone what they should do between being side A or side B, between affirming and non-affirming. I'll introduce Jesus Christ, and I will encourage them to pursue their faith above everything else, pursue Christ above everything else, and answer that question on their own. And that actually ended up going very well. I had developed some great friendships out of that, because we met on the common ground of simply caring for LGBTQ individuals, especially teens. One of the individuals I became friends with is a trans man, and so for him, he's very passionate about seeing teens not hiding away, not being ashamed of themselves, and actually being able to talk about what's going on in their lives openly. And he has a massive heart for the gospel. He has Jesus freak tattooed on himself, loves Christ, loves the gospel, loves people. And so we build this common ground of, okay, we have a passion to see the gospel spread in our community. We have a passion to see people come to know Christ. And we had a difference of belief, but it wasn't preventing us from still sharing that passion for the gospel, because for both of us, we saw the belief on sexuality as secondary to reaching people for the gospel, especially those who've been pushed away before. For me, in those friendships with individuals who are, I meet them and they are side A, they're affirming, we usually build the common ground on a shared faith, and we build the common ground on a passion for the gospel, recognizing there's a difference in the beliefs in regards to sexuality and how we live that out, but knowing that if we have a focus on the gospel, that doesn't prevent us from basically working together to see the gospel spread around us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you say that, like, I just need to put this out there because I know, like I mentioned earlier, we have a very diverse listenership, conservative, progressive, everywhere in between. And actually in the Yobbers groups, when I posted about this topic, I had to keep the conversation a little bit on track because it's so easy, and y'all know this better than anyone, it's so easy to quickly divert into a conversation about labels and wait a minute, but if they're side A, but wait, are they actually believers? Are they actually following Jesus? What is this conversation? And like I said, that is another conversation. And maybe we'll do an episode on that someday. But right now we're just talking about, like, we're all like, okay, let's assume, let's just, for the sake, everyone across the spectrum, let's assume that we are all following Jesus, but we just have a really big disagreement about this one particular area with sexuality and what to do with it. We're starting at that point. And so in a future episode, we may backtrack and we might dive into that. I'm not opposed to that, certainly, but that's just kind of where I'm at, because I don't want people to turn off the episode just because they are, from whatever persuasion, whatever belief you come from. If you disagree with whether someone is a follower of Jesus or not because of this issue, we're skipping that intentionally for the sake of the story. But thank you for sharing, Dean, because I love the work you've done with a lot of people. I've participated a little bit here and there with panel discussions and various conferences, and so it's cool to hear more of your perspective from a ministry standpoint. And like, certainly, man, hopefully no one across the board has any opposition whatsoever to a side A trans man helping teenagers and youth like live healthier, safer, productive, more fruitful lives. Like, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Matt, what about you? I know you have at least one story. You have probably many stories to share, but pick one for the sake of time.
Yeah. So I have one person who is side A. It's funny how our friendship developed was because he asked a question about my heritage, my culture, where I lived on the reservation. And at first, I didn't know that he was side A. I didn't know these labels, all that stuff. And through the years, through like 10 plus years of friendship, me and him would just like debate here and there. But mostly it was just him just being himself. And he would have like boyfriend's relationship here and there. And through that, just me just treating him like a regular person, like nobody, not condemning him. There we go. What he's doing, all that stuff. And for him, he is kind of like me. He's an 8. He's more of an intense person than me, but yeah, for real. Yeah, for real, he is. And through his friendship, I learned how to just be just nonchalant with a person who is side A. So I mean, like, if somebody is side A, it's like, okay, it's like, I don't care. And for him, he definitely loves Jesus. He loves. He grew up as a pastor's kid, just like me. So when me and him talk about church stuff, he's like, he's on it. He knows what I'm talking about and stuff that I struggled with. Like, he grew up struggling with as well. And of course, like, he tells me about like his dates, relationship, all this stuff, and it's funny. Just through that, I learned how to respect him. I learned how to love him, and at the same time, that there are times. I mean, I really can't change anybody's mind. Like, we can debate and all that stuff, but if like a person is going to change their mind, whether they want to switch to side A to side B or whatever, it's going to be on them. It's not. I mean, it's everything is not going to be on me. I'm not going to be like their savior of all that stuff. And I learned how to. If I have a disagreement with them, then I have a disagreement with them, but I'm not going to kill off the relationship because I have my own beliefs, whether it be side B, Y, X, whatever, all that stuff. And it's like, no, it's like, you are in that person's life for a reason. And if they're doing this, then just let it go and let them be them and just like be a good friend. And that's how that's usually how I go with relationships with side B guys. And I mean, it's been pretty fruitful. I've learned from them. They've learned from me. But in the end, they are people, and in the end, they are made in the image of God, and all that stuff as well. And I think I'll share a quote. I probably said it like a long time ago, but I'll probably reiterate it at some point. So yeah, I'll say that later.
Oh, teaser, everyone. There's a quote coming.
Yes. Yes.
I don't want to make light of it. No, I love your attitude, Matt, because that is such a healthy attitude to have. This is you integrating toward too, Matt. That you don't have to win the argument. You can just be a good friend. You can just love them for who they are. And ultimately, like, that is such a huge relief and weight off of our shoulders that we don't have to save anybody. We don't have to change anyone's mind. We don't have to do that. We can rest in letting Holy Spirit do it and just trust, be a good friend, be the hands and feet of Christ, as Dean was saying. Cause like, that is something that like I used to struggle with. I used to think that I had to have my entire theology laid out and I had to have all the points and all the arguments and all the things laid out, as this was all new to me. And people were starting to throw out these two sides out there and what different sides of this issue believe. And, that's not to say it's not important to have, good discussion. Like, I think it's great if people are gifted in having, good, fruitful academic theological discussion. Like, that's obviously necessary and needed. But speaking to my own just personality and my own giftings, like, I feel way better about myself when I can just tell my story and I can just talk about what God is doing in my life. And certainly that's going to manifest in my decisions and the path that I'm taking with my faith and my sexuality. But I don't have to convince anybody. If people are convinced of my story, if they see Holy Spirit doing something in me, then that's obviously all the more power to him, and that's nothing in me. But it's amazing when you can just have that rapport. And I love that you brought up a friend who is also a pastor's kid and is also an Enneagram 8. And so there's probably a lot just in common, far beyond the sexuality issue alone. And so that's really cool that you have that to go off of. I think for me, when we're talking about friends who you would meet as a side A person, I just don't really have a history for it. Like, again, I love that you guys do, because it adds diversity to the conversation, but I'm sure there's plenty of people listening who also are just struggling to even figure out how they fit into this conversation. Because like for me, the only two stories that come to mind, the first one's really quick because I met him. I actually have blogged about him a couple times. He was the first guy to ever hold my hand and the only guy who's ever tried to kiss me. So I've blogged about that, and I'll link both of those posts in the description because they're fun little stories. But yeah, there was this one guy that I met back in the day, back when internet blogging and storytelling and all that was very new to me and to Dean and to Matt. I met somebody who maybe this is a bit of a cheat. Maybe he wasn't side A at the time, but he was definitely side A-ish. We'll say that. He followed Jesus, was super active at his church, and he was definitely leaning that way if he wasn't already there. Let's just say that. Case in point, him making a move on me. So there's that. Maybe we'll have some bonus YOBcast conversation later about what do you do when a side A friend comes onto you. That could be a fun conversation. But yeah, for me, it was hard because there was a lot about him that I connected with. He was also artistic and it was funny, and there was some things we connected over. But at the core, like this whole the side A side B divergence and the fact that he was pseudo romantically interested in me was kind of a turnoff, if I'm just going to be honest. Like, it just didn't inspire me to want to remain in his life and to continue to be friends. It didn't feel like there was a foundation there to build off of. And there were other factors too. Like, we used to live closer together and then we just moved further away. And so that just inevitably adds a distance to the relationship. But that one was one that fizzled out quickly. And that was super early. This was at least a decade ago. I don't even remember. It's been at least 10 years, but, so that one comes to mind. And then the other one, which was still a little while ago, I think probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was living in Southern California at the time. And I was feeling lonely, honestly. I was really lonely, kind of desperate for friends, not having didn't have a good track record getting connected at a church anywhere. And so where did I go, you guys? Craigslist. Remember when Craigslist had personal ads? Remember when that was a thing? I can say it now because it no longer exists.
And Craigslist was the reason why I used to hook up a lot. So if you ever want to hear my hookup story,
I can say it now because I never want to plant seeds in our listeners' heads about things that they could do, but they can't do it anymore. It doesn't.
Yeah,
I hooked up over Craigslist. No.
Yeah,
I'm starting to bring up.
Hey, that's the reason why you and I, Dean, almost have the same story, similar story because of Craigslist. Yeah. It's Craigslist's fault.
Hold on, let me finish my story because I'm not talking about a hookup. I did not do that.
Sounds like yeah.
but anyway, yeah, there was like a law, some law was passed, and so Craigslist had to shut down their personal ads because it might have been like I don't know, they might have been sued or something by somebody. So anyway, there used to be personal section on Craigslist. And one day I just was looking at it because I was bored and feeling lonely, whatever. And I saw somebody, it wasn't anything about like a sexual interaction or a hookup. It was actually a guy who identified as a gay Christian. And I believe he posted a picture of himself. I think he did. And it's just like a little 1 or 2 paragraph bio about who he was. And he said he was lonely and was looking for fellow believers, gay or not, but I think he put it out there in the hopes of connecting with other gay believers, but he just wanted to start connecting with fellow gay Christians in the area. And so I saw that and I was like, huh. And he posted it several times, like over, every couple of weeks, I noticed the same post popping up. So clearly he's having trouble finding somebody to connect with and befriend. And I don't know, this is like pretty uncharacteristic of me. It kind of shows maybe how lonely I was at the time, but I reached out to him and messaged him knowing full well, like he never spelled out that he was affirming, but just like the language he used, it was pretty clear that we didn't have the same approach to faith and to sexuality. But I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to grab coffee with him. And little did I know, this is, if you already think this was uncharacteristic of me, he like messaged me back right away. I was like, I'm free now. What Starbucks are you at? Because I told him I was writing from a Starbucks. And he actually drove like in the next hour to come see me at this Starbucks in Southern California. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Am I about to hook up? What's happening? What's going on? And it was a fine conversation. There was nothing like, he was a fine, wonderful young man. He was about my age. And we, talked about sexuality and faith, and we talked about what we believed. And it was very clear within the first 10 or so minutes of the conversation that he believed one thing and I believed another thing. And again, I'm sure he was a fine young man, but there was just nothing there to build a friendship on. And this is a problem I think I have as, we were making jokes about the Enneagram this whole episode. This is what happens in the YOBcast. But as a 4, I value authenticity. I value genuineness. And if there isn't like some sort of genuine foundation, and this is kind of like a segue to side B turned side A friendships, I think. If there's not that commonality there with what I believe, it's really hard for me. I'm trying to like loosen the reins a little bit and not feel like every friendship that I have has to be the most deep, meaningful, foundational type of friendship that could exist. Because I live in the ideal, I live in the fantasy world of like all my friends are amazing and great, and we all follow Jesus the same way together. But we're all also very diverse, very different. And so that friendship didn't go anywhere because we had an hour-long conversation and it was fine, but there wasn't like any kind of burning desire to like reconnect with him and stay connected and learn about his life and everything. And I'm just vulnerably admitting that I'm not the greatest person. Like maybe if I could do that over again, maybe I would stay in this guy's life if he was lonely and looking for fellow believers to befriend. But as it was, as a 22, 23-year-old young, immature believer, I don't know, maybe it wasn't my time to be that type of person in his life. So do y'all want to rip me up now, or do you want to say it's okay, Tom? We still love you.
No, we're going to rip.
Okay, Tom, we still love you.
No, we're going to rip you up.
We're not going to rip you up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, I'm talking about authenticity as a 4. Like Matt, in the words of Hillsong Young and Free, me and my best friends are sick of pretending. We want the truth. So that is where my heart is that I have this desire to have these close, intimate best friends, and we're all living and walking in truth together. Like that is the core of my essence as a 4. So I hope you can appreciate
if anybody is listening to this, I'm going to ask the Yobbers this. If there's any opportunity to slap Tom for me for making that comment about...
No, Matt, I mentioned Hillsong.
I know.
You're supposed to say, yeah, I love that song.
I do, but song. You did it in like a annoying way where I want to strangle you. Again, Yobbers.
Matt,
no.
I want to be in the land of entrapment with you, with the windows down in the car, blasting best friends down the interstate. I want that so bad.
So, Tom, here's the thing. You say that...
I know you do too.
So you talk about wanting authenticity and honesty. Like, just going to say this, who amongst your friends is more honest than Matthew? Like, Matt is so honest with you. Matt is
am
incredibly honest with you. Also, I'm not going to like boast, but I'm pretty authentic and honest and straightforward with you, Tom. Like,
you are.
So you kind of have two of the people that, we're gonna slap you.
Yeah, because of that cheesiness.
Honestly, I need it.
You basically ruined the song because you wanted to make it like this, like stupid, like memorable, like whatever.
It's the 4 anthem.
It's the fourness in you, Tom. It's the fourness. It's the desire to be so individualistic that as soon as someone approaches you that could be close, you push them away somehow because it's the conflict of I want to be completely unique and yet have someone so close to me. And then as soon as someone gets close to you, it threatens your uniqueness. So you push them away so you can remain unique, but still then desire that closeness. Am I wrong, Matt?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
We're diving way too deep into the psychology of my essence right now. And that is, I already had therapy today, so we're done. We're done with this conversation. But I will say, I love you guys. I love the directness with you guys. It's one of the many things that I value in our friendship.
You're welcome.
But anyway,
you're welcome.
You are so.
We love you, Tom. We will give you a kiss on the cheek, kiss on one cheek, and slap you the other one. Okay, I'll give you a kiss on one cheek, and then we'll both slap you on the other cheek.
Yeah.
Right, Matt?
Yes, exactly. I've been wanting to slap Tom for a good 5 years.
Oh, Matt, I can't wait until you touch me again. It'll be great. But not until my autoimmune disease is in remission. No touching until.
Fine.
Can I record the touching, please?
Yes, you can.
Yabalog.
When I'm in remission, you can touch me.
Yabalog.
Assuming that the pandemic is over by then, which God only knows.
If you would like to see Matt touching Tom, please subscribe to our Patreon at 250.
That'd be a great bonus video footage. I love that. Well, y'all, we need to move on because I think this is a good segue. As we've started dipping into these waters, it's a good segue to talk about side B turned side A friendships, which I have a feeling a lot of guys in our group, and this may even be its own episode someday. I think there's a lot of stories that are forming. And, as this journey, as we're in the Revoice era, Revoice started a couple years ago, people are getting to connect more in person at these conferences. And there's various Facebook groups, not just ours. There's several other Facebook groups out there for side B believers. And inevitably people switch, people change their mind, people choose a different path and they go from side B to side A, and friendships have already formed and built around this community, around this issue. And now how does it change? And it's a big web of complication, at least for some people. I'm not saying it's that way for everyone. There might be some people even on this call that it's not as complicated as you think it is. But for me, for a lot of other guys, like that's a complicated thing to navigate. We actually had one of our authors called in, you guys, and wanted to participate in the discussion. So I'm going to play his message right now.
Hey guys, this is your fellow brother and blogger Eugene coming to you from St. Louis. But needless to say, a pretty interesting topic here, and also kind of a hard one as well. I've personally never had a close friend go side A, but I have had a few, just basic friends and acquaintances going side A. It's hard. And like in my case, it's hard not to, my biggest problem is losing any sort of enthusiasm for the relationship, because in a lot of ways it almost sort of feels like a fellow Christian friend becoming an atheist or something. So I guess my question is, assuming you guys have close friends that have gone side A and you're still friends with them, how do you maintain any sort of enthusiasm for the friendship? How do you sort of get past that big difference and everything? Anyway, I love you guys, and can't wait to hear the whole podcast when it's over. So talk to you soon.
Oh, love you too, Eugene.
Thank you, Eugene, for calling. Man, if any of our other authors want to call us, and our listeners too, for that matter, of course, our yobbers, but it's always good to hear from our fellow brothers in the storytelling realm. So we had Eugene on one of our convo casts. It was great to meet him audibly one time. But anyway, let's get to the crux of his question, because I also wanted to read this quick account that one of our yobbers posted in the group, and then I'll get y'all's thoughts on it. He said something along the same lines. He said, I wrestle with the continuing friendship with side A because it either seems like A, they expect me to be okay with it, or B, they expect me to join them, and or C, they want nothing about our relationship to change. Also, some side A friends seem to be waiting for my mixed orientation marriage to fail or act like I'm still pretending or lying to myself and that my marriage won't last. I found it difficult to maintain close relationships with side A folks due to this, if they're interested in continuing the friendship at all. And that account in particular is unique and different because it kind of correlates with your story, Dean, a little bit. You're in a mixed orientation marriage, if that's the language you would use. But yeah, that's another dynamic too, of like being single versus being married to a woman. And then do I continue build this friendship with somebody who's now adopting a side A theology? So there's a lot to unpack there and get into. Do any of those accounts, either Eugene's voicemail or this Yobber's account, resonate or trigger any thoughts from you guys?
It's something that I know the post from the Yobbers group about marriage. Yeah, that's something that I've pondered before. I haven't necessarily had someone, in my friends who have gone side A, I haven't had them come back to me and say like my marriage is going to fail or anything like that. And I think some of the difficulties in general, the thing of, okay, is it difficult or how does the relationship change? I think it depends on the nature of your relationship beforehand. I've had some really good friends go side A, or at least go to, I'm not side A or side B, I'm in between. I haven't decided. For them, it depends on if they have a relationship or not. That develops. They're open to it, but they're not like actively trying to make that happen, or they wouldn't actively say they're affirming. And I think it depends on the nature of the relationship beforehand. Because if the relationship I have with them is based on like the thing that we share is side B, and that is the crux of our relationship, it's going to impact more if they move to a side A, if they start affirming same-sex relationships, because we've lost kind of that common ground, that crux of our relationship. If that's not, if there's other things that we have, things might change about the relationship, but it's not going to remove it. The only situation I could think of where I would probably wrestle or struggle would be if it was someone who was a mentor of mine, that was very invested in speaking into my life, moved into an affirming position, and they started investing in me in a way that they were saying, I'm, trying to move me into that. In which case, then for that purpose, I would put some distance between us, simply for the fact of they wouldn't be necessarily seeking out my best interest. They would be seeking out a resolution or a resolving of conflict of beliefs, which shouldn't have to happen anyway in a mentoring relationship. And so I would, if they were actively trying to push me into an affirming belief along with them, I would be concerned about that. But that would be, again, someone who was mentoring me and investing me, and their intention became to move me into that. Otherwise, like I said, it depends on the nature of the relationship. If it's we relate only because of this, then yeah, you're going to have a hard time continuing that friendship, because there could be presuppositions of what it's going to mean for you to continue to be friends in the future. If it's built on other things, the relationship may change, it may not change. And that's something that, if you're worried about that, it should be discussed openly. It should be discussed with respect, and just saying, what does this mean now that we started with this belief together and you've moved here? Is there an expectation that I'm moving? Is it okay if we never resolve this difference of beliefs? What does that look like? And having that respectful conversation.
Yeah, that's really wise. I mean, what you said about mentoring, some people might take that to like counseling as well. If that's an issue with counseling and therapy, to have someone who's more theologically aligned with you. I can sort of relate with that a little bit. I won't go into my story with that, but yeah, when I think about my own story, and I think Eugene's story parallels mine. In many ways, Eugene, you guys, is like me, but like the next version, like years down the road. Like he found our little blog community, and has met a lot of people where he lives there in St. Louis, through conferences and groups and things. And I think that's the problem that I've always had, is that I've never had just an organic meet a side A person at my school, at my church, at my neighborhood, and wherever I am out and about in life, creating some sort of commonality beyond the sexuality. I think I've just never had that access and that connection with somebody, because all of my connections with not all, but I would say the vast majority of my connections with fellow believers attracted to the same sex, whether they identify LGBTQ or SSA or what have you, is that they come from the side B world of the internet and everything. And it's hard to ignore that that's like the thing that drew us together, and how we even met each other in the beginning with, versus at a school or on a study abroad venture or what have you. Like, and so I see where Eugene's coming from a lot with my own story, and how hard it is when it's like, yeah, that inevitably that is the foundation, that is the starting point for the friendship. And then the issue becomes, do you have that awkward conversation? Or it doesn't have to be awkward, I guess, but if you're a conflict averse person, that can be that can be a hard conversation to have about like, okay, are we still friends? Is it going to be different now? What are the boundaries? How has things changed? How have things stayed the same? I think if you can have that conversation, that's great. But I understand that that's a hard one to have, both from Eugene's perspective and then the guy that commented who's in a mixed orientation marriage. Matt, what say you? What do you got to say about this?
Yeah, I got some stuff to say. So this goes for, okay, so I'm going to kind of talk to side A people who are listening to this.
Wait, we have those?
I hope we do.
We might, yeah, we absolutely. There's got to be somebody listening who does.
Yeah, or if somebody who is listening to us and is thinking about switching to side A or whatever, or they're just like in the middle or something like that. So
we definitely have those for sure.
Yeah, so I'm talking to you guys. So this is going to be a challenge to you guys. Hey, if any of you, either side A or people who are thinking of going into side A, my challenge to you guys is that don't be a manipulative jerk, because I've dealt with people who like went on to side A. It's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's like this, like, I'm so happy and all this stuff. It's like, hey, good for you. And then they try to like use their talk and like either whether through debates or whatever, but you can sense that there's kind of like an agenda behind what they're saying. And for a person like me, I don't like people like that. I don't like people who...
You're speaking like they specifically interacted that way with you, or just like stuff they posted online, or
stuff. Well, actually both. Like,
both. Yeah. So someone who went side A, like you have experiences with people who wanted to try to persuade you to their side. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, dude, it's like if you want to like quote unquote persuade somebody, don't do that. Like, if you want to be friends with somebody who is a side B person who has that conviction of being a side B person, dude, just leave them alone and have like a friendship with them. Like, and another thing for side B people, answering the questions, is that don't, and I'm going to have to basically repeat what Dean said. It's like, don't have a friendship that's only about side B stuff or sexuality stuff. There's more to a person. There's more to you. There's more to the other person than that. Like whether it be movies, sports, I don't know, or something like that. You have
sports?
Other qualities. Yeah, shut up. I'm talking. So you have other qualities that you can anchor your friendship in. It's like, it doesn't have to all be about like sexuality. Like with me and the friend that I was talking about, for me and him, we have other qualities that anchor us, our friendship. For him, he's side A, and then like he can comment on that stuff. It's like, yeah, it's like, cool, I don't care. It's like, you be you. And for me, same thing as well. And like, we hardly get into debates on sexuality stuff and theology stuff. And another thing about that is that like, if here's a good thing. Sometimes you don't need to argue with a friend or a person. Sometimes you can just say, it's like, okay, I don't understand this, but I'm just gonna be silent and just listen to you. Like, that's also a good thing to do. And sometimes you can just like even go further than that. It's like, okay, like, well, I don't know anything about this, so I'm just gonna shut up and just listen. So basically that's it. So that's one thing that I kind of want to like challenge both side A and side B. It's like, don't manipulate each other on stuff. Like, if you have other qualities to anchor your friendship, cool. If you're not, it's going to end pretty badly, or it's just going to end. And that's it. So, I mean, that's kind of like my thing with this whole thing. It's like, sometimes it's not all about like sexuality and all that stuff. And if you anchor your friendship with that, it's going to fail, whether they switch like one side or the other. So, yep. Use some common sense.
It almost reminds me a little bit of what's called like friends of convenience. It's like the friends that you have because you share a workplace, or you share a school, or you share some sort of season of life. And there can be a tendency to make that like the side B world. Like, it's friends because we're all side B. And those friendships can become close. But again, if that's the only thing that connects you ultimately is the side B aspect, if that changes, you do lose that. And that could be hard. But that just means that it was a friendship of convenience. It meant that if anything else shifted, or if you didn't have that one thing in common, there wouldn't be a relationship. It wouldn't exist anyway. And so that's something I had to learn with as many times as I've moved, change jobs, all this sort of stuff. It's one of the things that I've had to work through myself, and recognizing there's friendships that I have that I'm only going to have for a season, because that's it. Friendships I'm going to have that I can have for life. And that's the same thing that Matt was just saying. You have to make that judgment. It's very wise. Do not make it only about sexuality and your sexuality, beliefs on sexuality, because if anything changes, you will lose that friendship. There has to be other things that build the foundation. You may meet because of that. Friendships of convenience, you can bloom into other friendships, but if that's where they stay, it's not gonna be much of a friendship. It's not gonna be a friendship worth keeping for long anyway.
Yeah, and I love both of you guys. I love your perspectives, your maturity. You're so well spoken. My fort envy is showing right now.
Of course,
when I think about this issue, first of all, I love what you said, Matt. Manipulation is not a strong basis for any relationship, regardless of what it is. So if you have an agenda for the other person, regardless of what it is, probably not going to be a successful, healthy relationship. So I'm glad you pointed that out from both sides, whether one side's trying to convince the other, or what have you. And just like speaking to what you said, Dean, like not making relationships all about sexuality. Like there was a time where I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when it came to, I was trying to think of how to make that a pun for this whole situation, but cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in the sense that I was discovering, side B groups on Facebook and blogging on Zanga. And then we started Your Other Brothers, and all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you can't have too many friends, right? So let me add all these friends and have friends. And what I quickly realized was that it was too much, and that I had too many friendships that were based solely on we have the same sexuality. That was the basis of the friendship, essentially. All these Facebook and all these digital relationships all over the world. And obviously we have our Yobbers community, and I love our Yobbers. Hear me, Yobbers. I love all of you. And I genuinely do. And I've had a fantastic time befriending so many in our community, whether through our Zoom rooms and Skype nights, or whether through these yearly retreats that we've had, or travels crisscrossing the country and grabbing coffee and seeing them in their hometowns. Like I've absolutely befriended people within our community, but I've been very intentional these last couple of years to limit my exposure, and to be very intentional about not making sexuality the basis for all of my closer friendships, because they can be certainly a basis for some of them, and they are. It's inevitably how I met you guys and how I've met so many guys in our Yob community, and I can't erase the history of how I met you and how we came to be. And I'm grateful for the internet, and I'm grateful for the ability for us to have connected as we did all those years ago. But as it stands, like I know I need other people in my life too, straight and gay for that matter. And like, what if? So like, again, going back to my exposure, like I just haven't had the exposure of meeting somebody at a workplace or at a school that I strike up a friendship with. And then I find out like months down the road, years down the road, oh, you're gay, you're attracted to the same sex. Oh, you're dating a man, but you also follow Jesus. Oh, I didn't know that. Let's talk about that. And let's build a friendship based on all the other stuff that we've already built a friendship on. I've just never had that experience. And I'd like to think that that's an experience I can have one day. But as it is now, I do not. But yeah, it's just like, it's good stuff to chew on, that if sexuality is the basis of it, if side B is the basis of it, like, yeah, there's a chance that could change someday. It's happened multiple times for me. I imagine it's happened multiple times for you guys as well, with friends in your lives that have switched over, and maybe you remain friends, maybe you don't anymore for various reasons. But that's got to be something you have to be aware of. Because I admit I kind of lived in a naive little bubble a couple of years ago, thinking that that'll never happen to me. I hear stories of that happening to other people in other communities and other friends, but surely not me, not the friends I have chosen for myself. But yeah, inevitably, older you get, it's like, this is going to be a more common story. And like I said, I think this is a topic we'll revisit again one day, because I think it is a more common story that is happening as we progress down this road.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, I would have to agree with you. It's basically just part of growing up. It's like, if you live in this bubble, especially this Christian bubble or this side B Christian bubble, it was like, where it's like, okay, all my friends are going to be like side B stuff. It's like, no, it's like in reality, people change, and people have different perspectives on a lot of stuff, and you're going to, sooner or later, you're going to have to grow up and be okay with people changing. And not only that, but also be okay and get to a point where you're just nonchalant about it. It's like, if somebody is coming to you that has who call themselves a Christian and is a side A, you're just, one of these days you're going to have to be like, okay, then, like, and if you guys form a friendship with that, that's cool. If not, then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's a lot of people who have this perspective of just like they have this like clique, this group, and they're inside of their bubble, and they don't want to. They it's like their safe space, and sometimes
the bubble's nice.
Yeah, but it needs to pop because that's not reality. It's like you need to freaking grow up.
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting because I remembered I wrote a blog a few years ago called "Our Sexuality Doesn't Make Us Friends." Because
you did, yeah.
Because that was one thing that was happening was there was a little bit. It was early on in Yob, and it was a little bit this thing of I almost felt like, okay, I feel like some people are assuming that I'm friends, like, and I don't hate you. I just not friends. I don't know everyone here, and it's going to take more than just that. And it's kind of a shame because I feel like we would like the side B world. I feel like we should be used to this because this is what happened. This happened back in 2013. Exodus shut down. We had leaders who were proclaiming a Christian life that did not affirm same-sex relationships. That collapsed pretty terribly. And you think we would be used to this, and yet we are now here less than a decade later, kind of in the same thing again, where someone goes from side B to side A, and it's this heartbreaking moment. And I don't want to take away from the difficulty that can cause or the tension that can cause in relationships, but it is the maturing aspect going, this can't be the only way we make our friendships. And it might be a loss of future opportunities to be friends with that person or future friendship that we could have because we don't share that anymore. But we do have to recognize that, as Matt said, people change. And this is going to be our part of life. No matter what we have, whether it's Exodus or something else, people are going to change, people are going to leave, and we have to be ready to handle that when it comes.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting when you get to a point where you kind of like are basically you don't care, and it's like, okay, like this person like switched from side B to side or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, how does that affect me? Because it really doesn't affect me because I have my own life to live. I'm not going to perceive my life into another person's life. Like if they switch, it's on them. It's not on me. And it's like, and it comes down to is like, how is my walk with Jesus? Like, how is it right now? And if my life is basically on a pedestal of what they think of how they live on the stuff, like my like question to that person is like, are you like really taking care of yourself? Or is your walk like really your own? If you have like somebody like trying to like you have your life anchored on another person and they fail you, it's like you're gonna fail like pretty hard. You're gonna fall down pretty hard. It's like that's the reason why you need to take care of like your own self. And yes, there's gonna be some stuff that challenges your faith and your mind, but like, dude, it's like you are your own person. It's like you are your own. You have your own faith, and it's like if you are not willing to grow up, you're going to be a basically a child. It's like you need to freaking grow up. And some of these stuff, like with what we're talking about, and sometimes having a friendship with a person who is side A or a non-Christian, it's like one of these days it's going to happen, and no one's immune to this. And especially with change, no one's immune to change. Like all of this stuff is a part of growing up, and sometimes a lot of you guys need to grow up.
Boom. Take it from the 8. Y'all need to grow up. Y'all out there listening, nobody in here needs to grow up. No, I've like experienced a lot of heartache in this issue, and it's like an awakening to wake up and be like, is my faith strong enough to withstand? If every single one of my side B friends switched to side A, would my faith still stand? Would I still follow Jesus the way I feel convicted by him to do so? And that's the crux of it all for me, is like, am I putting my faith in the people around me? That's not to say God can't use the people around us, because he absolutely does. And I'm a huge believer in community. That's obviously a huge cornerstone of our community is having brotherhood and having strong male, especially strong male relationships in our community. But is that the bedrock? Like, what is the ultimate bedrock, the ultimate cornerstone of our walks? And it's been a huge journey for me the last couple of years of realizing that, yeah, God absolutely has used men in my life. He's used you two in my life, just to put names to it, names and faces. And he's also used other people as well. And some people who are no longer in my life and no longer am I in theirs. And so what do I do with that? Do I Do I abandon my faith altogether? Do I switch theologies? What do I do? It's been a huge point of maturity for my faith journey. It's been a huge point of maturity just in my relationships as well, because I think like Eugene and like a lot of our listeners grew up in Christian bubbles and went to Christian school or homeschooled or Christian college and church and Wednesday night and Sunday night and all the stuff. And so when all of a sudden this side B, side A thing comes up, it's very jarring because it's something, I'll speak for myself, but I know it's echoed by some percentage of people listening, that all of a sudden it's very jarring when something that feels anti-Christian or not as Christian as we're accustomed to enters our sphere directly in a very personal, intimate way with how we approach our sexuality and how we built these friendships. So I see both sides of it. I feel the empathy and the hardness of it. And I also take Matt's constructive criticism about I need to grow up, and we all need to grow up because we do. But I also empathize with everyone listening. So I want that to come across as well. But yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard stuff. It's hard stuff to grow up, Matt.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I agree with you.
Well, y'all, I had we had 7 or 8 other questions. I feel like we're running low on time, and I want to put this out there. Spontaneous question for you guys. Would you be down, not next time, because I think we need to do another episode topic next time, but would you guys be down to revisit this topic at a future date and kind of continue this conversation? Because there are some things, some yobbers, I'm not going to spoil it, but one of our yobbers posted one of the most just beautifully worded, insightful, just professional questions. And I feel so bad because I know if I ask it now, we're going to talk for the next 20 minutes and we just don't have the time. We're out of time. We've talked so much today. So that's the main question right now. Would you guys come back and do a follow-up conversation on this one day? And it's okay to say no.
Actually, yes. And you just reminded me of the quote that I wanted to.
Okay, hold on. I need to get Dean's answer. Dean, will you come back one day and discuss this further?
Of course I will.
Perfect. I think there's a lot here worth diving deeper into, because this is a big conversation. But before we go, Matt, yes, you teased us a quote way back, like on minute 12 of this episode. So we need to know what this quote is that's going to rock our worlds. We're all ready to be blown away, going to change our perspectives. We're going to tweet it out right away when we hear it. What is it? What is it, Matt?
Yeah. So yeah, I think this quote, we can end on this quote. And this is what I kind of not really form my life with, but how I view other people with. And this challenged me when I first heard it a very, very long time ago. And I think I said, I quoted this in past podcasts before, but if I did, oh well, you guys are going to hear it again. But I think this is a good challenge for not only myself, but to everybody around you. So, of course, this is from Ravi Zacharias, the late Ravi Zacharias now. And this is what he had to say. He said, "I have no right to violate you as an individual. I have no right to violate your property. I have no right to invade your life because you are made in the image of God. You have a right to make your choices. I have no right to stand in the way of your choices either. But choices will always have consequence. And so what I say to you is God gives you the greatest compliments in telling you that you are made in Imago Dei, in the image of God. And Jesus Christ takes that so specifically. He says to you that your body and mine are the temple of the living God. We don't go to the temple. We take the temple with us. This is invaluable."
Over the years, I've lost some friends, particularly in this world of side B and side A, and uncovering some magic from the internet and truly feeling the Lord connecting people not only across the country, but around the entire world. And needless to say, it's been difficult, if not devastating, to not only see the magic run out, but to see it corrupted and disintegrated, for friendships to wither and fall away when I never expected or anticipated such things to ever happen. I remember one in particular that kept me up at night. I'd cry tears into my pillow and think about all the experiences we've had and the shared sacrifice of laying down our wills and our ways as we followed Jesus together, as we pursued this call on our lives. And while there were many other factors to the friendship's ultimate failure, I can't help but wonder how much I put more stock in him or in the concept of brotherhood than I did in the Savior himself. The famed evangelist and writer of the devotional My Utmost for His Highest, Oswald Chambers, had this to say about Jesus. He said, "There is only one being who can completely satisfy to the absolute depth of the hurting human heart, and that is the Lord Jesus Christ." In one of Chambers' devotionals, he references John 2, how in verses 23 through 25, it reads as follows: "Now when he, Jesus, was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus on his part did not entrust himself to them, because he knew all people and needed no one to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man." And Chambers goes on to explain and to say that our Lord trusted no one, never placed his faith in people, yet he was never suspicious or bitter. Our Lord's confidence in God and in what God's grace could do for anyone was so perfect that he never despaired, never giving up hope for any person. If our trust is placed in human beings, Chambers concludes, we will end up despairing of everyone. And so, my brothers, let us truly, definitively put our hope in Christ, our Lord, not in our fellow man, though we need him, not in the church, though we need her, not in food or clothing or shelter, though we need those things too. Above all, may our ultimate covering, our everything, our awakening and our lying down, our well and our infusion flow from Jesus. May he inhabit our hands and feet amid a world so desperately in need of him, his words of life, his presence and healing touch, his mercy, his justice, his acceptance of where we are, and his charge to pick up our crosses and follow him daily. May we represent him well with each step, wherever we go, with whomever we meet and befriend along this journey. And may we stand strong in our stead, never losing sight of his way and his call to us, despite the many swirling calls surrounding us. Not our will be done, but his, ever and always, step by step.
Y'all, I want to hear your stories and your questions. I know you have questions because we got so many other questions submitted that we just didn't get to today. So maybe the way I envision a part 2 to this, maybe we just do it. It's just all Q&A, and we just like have a whole bunch of questions. We've already shared our stories, so now that's already out there as far as side A friendships in our lives, or lack thereof, from my perspective. But yeah, I'd love to maybe do another episode sometime with you guys and just have questions that we just kind of roll through and get through those together. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear y'all's perspectives, y'all's story. Please comment on our episode. You can go to yourotherbrothers.com/podcast, find the episode 62 post on side A friendships, and tell us a story. Tell us about side A friends in your life. Do you have them? Do you not? Why or why not? And just tell us whatever you feel comfortable sharing about your interaction with the side A, with the affirming world, and developing friendships with those people. I'd love to hear. That's hard. That's easy. It follows the trend in our Yobbers group, which is pretty even across the board, whereas people have a lot of them or a few or none at all. So I'd love to get your perspective on our website. Always feel free to comment. We love getting comments on the site. And if anything in our episode inspires you to lend your audible voice, please join in on this hot new trend, which is calling the Yob line, 706-389-8009. Program it into your speed dial, put us in your top 8, and let's get you on the show. It'd be awesome to have more listener feedback on the show, whether you have a story to share or questions to ask. If you have a question, maybe we'll save that for our part 2 episode whenever we get to doing that in the future. So yeah, this is a really great episode. Thanks again to our sponsor, Coins. Y'all make sure you go out and spend your coins. This is Tom telling you to spend your coins, save the U.S. economy, and probably the world economy too, for all I know. All you gotta do is spend your little nickels and your dimes and your quarters and your $50. You guys have those? My grandfather used to give $50. They were so cool. They're like the most gigantic, ridiculous coins. But anyway.
Oh, dear heavens.
And thank you, Matt and Dean. This is a great episode. Thank you, guys. Thank you again, Matt, for skipping church. Dean, for not falling asleep and snoring the whole episode. Thank you for doing that. We'll be back, you guys, in, 2 weeks. We're doing this every 2 weeks again. I need to get back into the rhythm, back into the flow. We'll be back with an all-new YOBcast in 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. And if you're a patron, if you're a Yobber, you might be getting a bonus episode, a Yobalog, coming soon. So stay tuned for that as well. That's all for this episode of Your Other Brothers podcast. For all your other brothers, my name is Tom.
I'm Dean. Hugs and kisses.
I'm Matt.
No hugs and kisses from Matt.
No.
Reminding you, you are not alone. Even the sparrow finds a home. See you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Your Other Brothers podcast. Our show is edited and produced by Thomas Mark Zuniga. Theme music is Fear Is Not My Lover by Nathan Rousseau. We'd love to hear your story. Comment on this or any of our episodes at yourotherbrothers.com/podcast. Or share a story to play back on our show by calling us at 706-389-8009. You can also email us at podcast@yourotherbrothers.com or write to us at Your Other Brothers, P.O. Box 843, Asheville, North Carolina 28802. If you enjoy our show, consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Your Other Bros. Finally, if you'd like to further support our storytelling, community building efforts, consider becoming a Yobber. Yobbers pledge monthly on Patreon and receive perks like bonus podcast content, access to a secret Facebook group, regular group calls with fellow patrons and authors, and more. Visit patreon.com/yourotherbros for more information. Until we journey next time, we're glad you're with us.